everyone, and welcome to this week's episode. I am so grateful that you're here. I'm really excited for today's session because I'm chatting to one of my friends, one of my students, and to just an overall amazing human being, mother, and intuitive. So I want you guys to welcome Kirsten for me. Hey, Kirsten.
Hi, how are you?
I am so well. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to chat to you today.
Same. I think we're going to have some really juicy conversations and to be able to really rawly bring what it's like to be on that intuitive journey and to see it unfold, because I've spoken many times about my own journey, but it's going to be so beautiful to hear about your journey and your evolution, and just to give people another perspective of what intuition and how you can grow through it can really happen. Because so many people I always hear, and we had it last week where people said, I just don't have time to be intuitive or go on this journey. It's just too busy.
Yes.
And you're definitely the case for me of I can do it all. So I'm so glad that you're here and we can chat about it. So before we jump in and I ask you all the juicy questions, what does intuitive mean to you?
Yeah, such a great question. I think of being intuitive as trusting self. So, looking back on my life, I always did trust my intuition. Sometimes I didn't act on it or listen to it, but I always had that gut feeling about people, places, and situations. So I would say with your intuition, just to trust it, to listen to it, because it always does take us on the right path.
So powerful. So these are my two stock standard questions for anyone who's on my podcast, but do you mind telling us a bit about your story? And do you mind going back before you were like, yes, I'm psychic, just so people can get like a real gist of what it's like to have that journey and take up as much space, because your story is powerful and I really want you to share it with the world.
Yeah, okay, great. So I was the oldest of three children. I have a younger brother and sister. My parents always tell this story that when my brother was a toddler, he didn't really talk much, and I would pretty much talk for him. One of his only few words that he would say was juice, and that was for everything: food, drink, toys. So he would say, I want juice. And I would say, no, Mum, he wants this. So I believe now, knowing what I know, that I was telepathically reading him and just intuitively picking up on what he needed. And then, growing up, I was that very emotional kid. I had these big emotions. I was very sensitive, very shy. Sort of had a bit of a tough upbringing where I just felt like I wasn't seen, heard, or understood. But then in saying that, I didn't really understand myself. There was just these moments where I would think things like, oh, if I could just make it to this birthday, or if I could just experience this or do that. It was like I felt like time was running out and that there wasn't enough time. But again, I never really understood why I was thinking like that, and never really told anybody that I was thinking that. And then, feeling just very misunderstood and emotional. Didn't really have the outlet to sort of, express myself. And that was sort of through primary school and high school. Career-wise, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just, going to job to job. I ended up in property management, of all things. But luckily, like, I worked in a few places where I made some really good friends, which is probably why I stuck it out for so long. I would just say, yeah, like throughout my life, I just had this real need to try and help people. And that there was times that I thought, maybe I should be a counselor and things like that, but I sort of listened to other people rather than listen to myself and my own intuition. So I never sort of followed through with anything like that. Especially, again, people would say, oh no, you're too sensitive to do something like that. So yeah, I sort of didn't listen to my intuition all the time. And yeah, I would say that, sorry, just going back to, wanting to help people, I sort of did that above looking after myself. And then, meeting my husband and having children, even more so, it was just like I did everything, for my kids, which is, what we do. But I always put myself on the back burner, and I never made time for myself. And then I guess, like, I definitely feel like I did have a couple of different spiritual awakenings on, a whole range of different levels. But really the last one that I had, which was 2020, I feel like my husband and I sort of started going through a spiritual awakening together, which, funny enough, started with a detox and a meal plan, and it was basically March 2020, COVID hit, we were in lockdown, and I think my husband was just like, well, I want to get fit, might as well do it now. He fitted out the garage with a home gym. And so it was his idea to go on this detox plan. And I think initially I was like, oh yeah, I'll just do it for him. I'll just support him. It's more so for him, not me. But really, something basic like that, just changing your habits, whether it's food, alcohol, coffee, because detox is going back to basics, eating raw food. That sort of had me questioning, like, what am I doing? Even though, I was a pretty healthy eater, I could see that I was emotionally eating sometimes, and even like leaning on coffee, and even sometimes like, oh, I'll just have a glass of wine to make myself feel better. So it's not like there was like a problem, but I could definitely see that I was using those things as like a crutch to sort of get me through the day. So yeah, I would say that was like the start of it, just changing our diet and exercising, and yeah, that was really the start of just like looking at my life and looking at what was working, what I was sort of leaning on, and I guess the start of realizing that I was starting to I had been suppressing emotions and feelings rather than feeling them. Because I think, as a mum, we have to get on with it sometimes, and we don't allow ourselves like that time to really sit with what's coming up. So that was, yeah, the start of it all, really. And then I got into learning how to heal myself. I found healers, I found yourself, and that was really what started it all. Yeah.
It's so beautiful that your journey to your awakening was such a natural thing for you, because it wasn't the traditional jump like into blackness. It was whoa, this is what it's like to look after self. And at the end of the day, my biggest belief system is we're human. We're meant to want to be here. We're meant to want to live wildly and free and be healthy. because that's our true sovereign right. So finding it in that level and living and evolving through it has been so powerful to witness. And I think like that's only the start. Like how many like dark night of the souls can one person go on? Like how many do you believe that you've been through? Because I know that so many people go on so many.
Yeah, I would say probably 2 or 3. Yeah, I mean, do you want me to chat about all of them or just
I
like
would love you, like whatever you feel called to share, follow your intuition, because it will be powerful. Someone, like so many people think that dark nights of the soul is like someone died and you were black and it was a room, and the truth of it is they're minor or big things, like they're just shifting perspectives.
Yeah, well, I would say when I was 21, I was in quite a serious relationship. You know, it was somebody that I thought I was probably going to end up with, and that relationship didn't work out. Then a month later, my older brother, I have an older half brother, he divorced from his wife, and then a couple of months after that, my parents separated. And it was a really messy time in my whole family's life. There was a lot of conflict, a lot of emotions, you know, a lot of upheaval. And I think at that time, with all those relationships failing, it was like really a wake-up call to me that I guess I had this fairy tale in my head. Like I was telling myself, you know, you get married and that's it. You live happily after you have kids, and like this is what it is. And that was like a big wake-up call that like relationships are not easy, and it takes a lot of work, and sometimes it doesn't work out, and how important it was to make sure that you choose the right partner. So that was like a really dark time for me. I was really emotional. I was really not coping, like, to be honest. And that's when I first started seeing a counselor, and when I had this idea that I wanted to help other people, because I saw how much of a difference it made for me. Like I was in bed, like I couldn't get out of bed, you know. The times that I did go out, I would go out with my friends and I would be like that emotional drunk. I just was not coping, and I didn't have the tools to cope. I didn't know how to help myself. So that was like my first awakening and like dark night of the soul, I would say. And then the second time would have been when my husband and I, when we met 6 months later, I moved from the city in Perth to Margaret River, which is like a country town. And, you know, that was like a really happy and exciting time. But for me, I had never lived with someone before. And, you know, I was moving, well, it was a couple of things. I was moving from the city to the country, you know, and I think like for me, I was like rushing. I was working in property management. It was stressful. People were abusive. I was rushing from one appointment to the other, driving around the city, you know, speeding. Like I was just like rushing all the time. And I think I felt this pressure just to like be there for like friends and family, and, you know, to do the right thing, to show up to things, to be social, to be this, to be that. I think there was like a lot of pressure that I put on myself. And so moving away from that and really slowing down and moving to the country, it was like, wow, all that stuff that I thought was important, and like especially material stuff, you know, I was like, that's really not important. And this is like my time to really figure out like what is important to me, and what do I like want for my life, you know. And I think, you know, I don't want to, sort of, it's hard because like in the city, I think we are all so busy and rushing, and in the country, everybody knows everybody. And it's like, it's just about community and about caring, and caring and being there for each other and supporting each other. So it's very different. So yeah, I feel like there was this stage where, I was trying to figure it all out. And funny enough, what sort of manifested in my life was that I developed an issue with my thyroid, which was my immune system like attacking my thyroid. So that's how that sort of manifested. So I would say that, that was like the second awakening or dark night of the soul that I had. And then, last year, like I said, we changed our diet and stuff. And I just really started looking at my life and looking at all the trauma and grief and fear that I had been feeling. And I think like the real tipping point was in November 2020. I had another miscarriage, and so that was coming off suffering like in a year, a partial molar pregnancy, then an ectopic pregnancy that I ended up losing my right fallopian tube, and I ended up with internal bleeding and in surgery and everything. And then after that I suffered another 3 miscarriages. So the last miscarriage in November was just the tipping point where I just really was like, what am I doing? Do you know? Like a friend said to me, you're gonna kill yourself trying to have a third baby. And that was kind of like, oh gosh, like it has been pretty rough. Like, what am I doing? And I really sort of just felt in my body that something wasn't right, but it wasn't physical, and I didn't really know what that meant. And so I just felt like this calling that it was time to heal in any way and in all the ways that I could. So it was really, I think it was like, I can't remember, I think it was Christmas Day, and I had been talking to a healer, and I had been healing myself and doing different things. And I just said to myself, what do I want to do next year? How am I going to go into next year? Am I happy like living my life like this? And I remember just sitting at my in-laws' place, and I just like made the decision, like, next year is going to be about me and healing me. And that's really where it started. And my journey is very different to a lot of other people that I've spoken to. So I was doing the work. I was, looking at my life. And then when I started working with this healer, it was like fast. And I was in that dark night of the soul. Like I was in deep, and it all happened like quickly. Like that first week of January, a lot of stuff was coming up. And, I remember driving to work one day, and I was just bawling, absolutely like inconsolable. And I just remember calling my husband and being like, oh my God, like all this stuff was coming up, and I was just like, I just can't stop crying. And he was like, well, what are you doing? Like, don't go to work, just, what can I do, sort of thing. And it was like that for probably 8 weeks, that I was just in the thick of it. And I'm sure he was like, what is she doing? What has she got herself into? But I would say that enlisting that healer like my healing was rapid. Like I saw rapid healing, and just suddenly felt like this immense joy and happiness that I had not felt in so long. And it was like, wow, like this is like amazing. Like, yes, like you feel like these deep, like this deep hurt and this deep grief and anger, but then when it shifted and transmuted, it was like this amazing like light and love that replaced it. So yeah, it was just like so magical. And I guess that's what spurred me on, because I was like, this is how you can feel. Like, I want more.
Yeah. And I think so many people don't understand that with a dark night of the soul, it is just a time of transmutation, and we're moving and it was really interesting how you spoke about the thyroid issue, how it manifested in my physical body, because what trauma is really unused or unseen or unheard energy that we're storing in our physical body. And if we don't look after that, and if we don't look after ourselves and know ourselves well enough, like, I'm actually angry today because so and so said this, and I've got to run into another meeting and I'm not going to deal with it, that becomes stored anger. And anger is the hardest emotion to shift, because it only resurfaces next time we get angry. And so many people feel that huge anger, that weight in their chest. They're not quite sure why it always only comes up next time they're angry, because it's never been transmuted, and it can turn into a multitude of different health problems, right? And I think really that's so important to point out, because you were moving through all of that unused emotional stuff when we're talking about the healing was so rapid, just so people can understand at a different level, because there is so much that can be seen as trauma. And we live in a society that's like, trauma only looks like X.
Exactly.
Like, it has to be a big thing. The truth is, trauma is a 5-year-old being unseen and unheard.
Yes.
Because that's shaping their reality from the time that we're 0 to the time that we're 8. We're learning that we are different and we aren't one with the objects around us. That mummy and daddy are different beings, right? So we're shaping that reality. But in that time, whatever our belief system is, so whatever we heard, I'm going to use money because it's such a known example, is if we hear our parents between the ages of like 4 and 8 chat about money doesn't grow on trees, it becomes a belief system, because I believe them with my whole heart, because only 4 years ago I wasn't quite sure that I was separate from mum and dad or the couch. I thought everything was oneness, because we don't have that perceived ability. So it's really important to know that when we come here to this space of healing and moving and shifting, it's about doing the internal work, the questioning, the redefining, the belief systems to really shift things. And that's what you've done at such a rapid pace. Like, I've not seen anyone transmute as fast as I feel like you have in such a small amount of time, and that you really need to give yourself credit for, because I can see the power that you hold and have, because you've manifested your journey to be this quickly. And everything in our life is such a manifestation. And so many people believe that when we start talking about manifestation, it can only be the good stuff, but it's also the bad stuff as well. So I think my next question for you is, how did it feel going from that being healing and being in that cycle of healing to being able to walk someone else through their healing journey?
Yeah. I think, you know, for me, why I do this work, why I want to be a psychic and a healer, is because I have experienced so much grief, loss. You know, I used to have anxiety and all sorts of things. And so I feel like I really understand how it feels, like how people feel. I have that great, empathy for people, but also being clairsentient. I can feel it as well. So I know it like in my heart and in my mind, but I can feel what they're feeling in their body. And I guess like when we started working together and, we started, doing the different exercises and stuff. And when I really started to self-reflect, I was like, wow, I've actually been doing this already. Reading energy and picking up on energy. But in my case, because I could feel the energy, I was carrying that around with me. So that's what sort of was weighing me down and why I was always so emotional. And so learning the tools to protect myself and to ensure that I'm a clear channel so I can help other people, is like one of the big things that sort of changed things for me. Just getting my energy back was like a huge thing. I was, exhausted and tired all the time. So yeah, there was definitely like this transition period where it was like, okay, well, these are my gifts, these are my abilities. And it was learning how to connect back with myself and call back my energy and protect. And then really becoming like intuitive and reading energy became a lot easier, because then I understood who I was, what I was feeling, and then I could recognize what wasn't mine and what I was picking up on. And either if I was out to protect myself or if I'm doing a reading, then I know that that's what is coming up for them, and that is something that we need to discuss. And I just love doing readings and interacting with people, because it's like I can see what's holding them back. And at the start of a reading, sometimes we're a bit unsure about what's going to come up, and then towards the end it's like just this realization, and they just feel so much lighter, because it's like someone is validating what they're already feeling and giving them clarity and direction. And I can just see that change in them, if that makes sense. And it's really the first step to, them learning about their intuition and connecting back to themselves and starting to heal, on their journey. So I get like, I'm on this high, like afterwards, because I can see like the difference in the session. And then I really like to give people tools as to how to move in the direction that they're wanting to go, and to transmute, what is coming up for them. Yeah.
So everything that you're saying to me is very much, to me, I can define it as an empath. So an empath is someone who's taking up and taking on everyone else's energy, and thus they can't feel their own self, and they're not quite sure if it's self, is it causing the anxiety, or if it's a situation, or if it's the person in front of them, or is it all of the above. So if someone's really resonating with this, what would you be their biggest tool that they can use to come back to self-sovereignty, to self-connection, and just like start to heal that circle?
Yeah. There's a couple of tools. I would say just really try to get back to self. And what I mean by that is sitting with yourself. It doesn't have to be meditation, but just feeling your body. Just start listening to your body, because your body is telling you what is going on. Like I would hold anxiety in my stomach. And so your body is trying to tell you what's going on, and just when I say connect back to self, it's just being aware of, okay, right now I'm feeling grief. Why am I feeling grief? And where is this coming from? So it's having that awareness, because once you have that, you can see what is yours and what is someone else's. You know, grounding is a great tool to ground back into your own energy and the earth. You know, protection, that can be, you know, a Reiki spray or psychic spray or crystals or a mantra, or, you know, there's so many different ways to protect your own energy. But again, just being aware of what is yours and what is not yours. I would say, yeah, those 3 tools are a really great place to start to get to really know yourself. And then you can, you know what is yours and what is not yours.
Yeah, I think we're so used to being in the connected space, to knowing ourselves, to knowing how we feel. It can feel so overwhelming for people at the start of this journey who are disconnected from self, that don't even realize their anxiety or depression or their mood swings or their want to not do anything, to have that zero motivation, is coming from unresolved, unseen, unheard trauma. So if you could look back on your life and give yourself some advice, what would be the advice you would give yourself?
I find journaling like really helpful. I mean, you know, if I went back 18 months ago and someone said to me to journal or to meditate, I'd be like, you know, no, I'm okay. But like, journaling really helps, because it helps you self-reflect on how you're feeling and what's sort of coming up. You know, talk therapy is really great, but you only have that therapist when you're there. You know, we need like coping mechanisms for every day. So, you know, sit with your journal, and I would just sit and write about, you know, I'm feeling fear about this. Why am I feeling fear? Where does this come from? When have I felt fear before? What is the fear about? Like, I would just sit and write until something comes up or you start to feel better, and you'll know. Like, that's really what I did at the start of my journey. Just like really just write and just, yeah, self-reflect on like everything. It's like having a best friend, you know what I mean, in a journal. Like, it's just something to bounce, you know, those emotions and those feelings off. I mean, yeah, again, like meditation, just to sit with yourself, and sometimes you can't always clear your mind, you know, thoughts come up, to-do lists come up, but that's part of it as well. Like, you know, the thoughts that come up, just be aware of those. Like, is it your ego telling you, you know, a story that's playing out in your life, like you're not good enough, you can't do this, you know, you're not smart enough. Like, just listen to those stories. Sometimes meditation isn't about clearing your mind, it's about listening to the stories and really asking yourself, why is this story coming up for me, and where did this story start? Like, whose belief is this? Because this isn't a belief that you want to carry. So yeah, I would say like those 2 things, I mean, they really made a big impact on my life and where I really started on my healing journey. So I feel like and you know, they don't cost anything either. Like, you can do that in the comfort of your own home whenever you're feeling whatever it is that you're feeling. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like they're really good places to start on your journey.
Yeah, and I think it's so powerful to question your own belief system. And it's something that we're not taught to do. we're taught to believe in society's standards, and we have to get a job and we have to rush and we can't be late to an appointment, and other people's times is more important than our own, and it costs so much to have X, Y, and Z, and you better make enough. And the process that you've been down is really defining what actually is mine and what do I want to take on this journey, and letting go of the rest of society's BS, because it's not serving humanity.
Exactly. Yeah, like as a child, we form this attachment to like our parents and our extended family and, you know, carers and teachers. But what we're not taught is that, you know, we take on these beliefs as our own to form this attachment to our family. But as we become into an adult, we're supposed to question everything and really, you know, determine what we want for our own life and ask ourselves whether we want to carry on those beliefs and values, or whether, you know, we want to take another route and really, you know, change our stories and beliefs and what we've been told. Because you know, what's true for one person isn't for the other. So it's about, as coming into, you know, your 20s, you should be like questioning everything and really just figuring out, you know, what is important to you.
And it's not too late to do it at any time. And I think so many people get to a place where they've had children, and most women become highly intuitive once they've had kids, because they're carrying the energy of their child, of the new age, of the new frequency inside of them, and it becomes part of them, right? So and this is when they start the reflective journey, and I'm seeing it at such a high level lately. And I think it's just so important to reiterate that it's never too late. Now is the time. The only regret you'll ever have is if you don't start today.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it is such a journey.
Yeah, exactly. You know, we're exactly where we're supposed to be. There's no point thinking, oh, I wish I had, you know, tuned into my abilities when I was younger, or this or that or whatever. Yes, I think like now is the time. Like there's a reason why it's now, if it is coming up for you. It's never too late. You know, whether you're in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, like, you know, now is the time. Like, how do you really want to live the rest of your life? Especially like for me, I just had this burning desire to want to help, and I didn't know what that looked like. But yeah, like there's never a wrong time. It's never too late. Like if you're feeling it, then just really lean in. And, you know, like at the start, I only had an hour a week to myself, but it's about, you know, just really looking at your life, getting clear on what's important, and maybe you'll have to shuffle things and, you know, reschedule things and, you know, turn the TV off and just get clear on what is important to you. And then over time, you'll find the time, you know, and I think that's what sort of just happens when you love something and you want to do something, you just find the time to do it.
Yeah. And I would love to hear your belief system on this, that when so many empaths come and say, I just want to help.
Yeah.
Do you perceive that's an external reflection on an internal problem that I need to help myself?
Yeah, I would say like it's probably both true. Like I think, empaths, we can feel what other people are feeling, and we want to help them because we don't want them to feel like that. But again, you know, most of the time we're feeling like that too, you know. So yeah, it's a really great place to start being an empath, learning to help yourself, so that you can help others. Because, you know, when we're coming from a place of like lack, and I mean, I was exhausted, I was tired, I never had any energy, and I didn't understand why. And I could, you know, really, I can't help anyone unless I help myself. So part of my journey was about helping myself and, you know, healing myself. And now, because I've done that, I'm in a place where I can help others and still have a boundary where if I'm needing more, if I'm needing to have some space for myself, which I always do every week, I allow myself that time. But, you know, if I'm needing something extra, then that's on me to give that to myself and have that boundary in place. Because again, I can't be a good mum if I'm feeling tired, exhausted, if I'm feeling all sorts of emotions that are coming up. You know, how am I going to speak to my kids in a loving, kind way when I'm not loving and being kind to myself, and I'm not, you know, being aware of what is coming up for me? You know, if I'm in a state of fear, how am I going to be calming and grounded for them? You know? Yeah.
And a big thing I've been reflecting on lately, and I would love to hear your opinions on this, is if we can't self-soothe as an adult, how can we teach a child to self-soothe?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, like I've always parented my kids to feel their feelings, and you know, if I see that they're maybe acting out, or, you know, they're having a bit of, so I've got two kids, if there's like a bit of a conflict between the two of them, you know, I ask myself the question, okay, well, what's really going on here? Like, why is he acting like that? Like, why is he really crying? Is there something else that's going on? And so, yeah, I just really try to have empathy and really look at things like from their point of view, because in their world, things that seem little to us are really big to them in their world. And I guess, you know, I do understand that, because that's like how I felt as a child. So yeah, it's just it's about just, you know, letting them feel their feelings, and then we just discuss, like, are you feeling sad because of this? And then just giving them the space to feel that, and, you know, let them cry, let them be angry. And then see, my kids, they're so different. My son, he really likes that comfort, whereas my daughter, I really have to ask permission. Do you want mummy to give you a hug, or do you just need some space? So sometimes they want to self-soothe, and sometimes they really just need that comfort. And again, you know, parents, you are that grounding energy for your children, so sometimes they need that. So yeah.
And it's so beautiful to witness, because you were clearly a highly empathic child, and to witness you coming full circle and breaking all of that, and breaking all of those lineages and lines, and coming to that full fruition, to helping them actually heal, because to feel is to heal, to move through and transcend. It means that energy isn't being stored in our physicality, in our physical body. It's not going to cause discomfort or dis-ease. And that's really the point of all of the stuff we do by feeling and healing and moving, and somatic release and breath work and journaling. Is all about releasing in a way so we can understand the internal into the external.
Yeah. And I think, like, when we talk about healing, there's so many different ways to heal. Like, I talk about journaling and meditation, and breath work. I really like breath work. That is what really resonates for me. But my son, like he loves playing the guitar, or I have a sound bowl, or listening to music. Like that is really healing for him, like music. And he's only 5, and he'll just start strumming on the guitar, and he'll just start like singing a song that he made up. And like for him, that's really healing. And he likes listening to meditations when he goes to sleep. Whereas for someone else, like, you know, singing or running, or, you know, the gym, or like just physical movement, that could be really healing. Yeah, there's so many different ways to heal, and it doesn't have to look the same for everybody, you know. And we don't have to just do one thing. We can try a bunch of different things. Like for me, when I'm feeling a certain way, you know, I just ask myself, like, what is going to be the best way to like sit and acknowledge this, and then transmute it. And, you know, sometimes it's a salt bath or like a float, you know, it's different all the time. So yeah, that's really important to know that there are different things that you can do.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, intuition is just knowing yourself and listening, and thus interacting. Like, I think so many people get caught up in, oh, you're a psychic, you tell the future. I'm actually just really good at knowing myself and my gut intuition, and just knowing what's coming and what's coming up. Like, I know myself so well that I can feel what isn't mine in this room.
Yes. Yeah.
And so many people take that to such a huge extent, but it's really just self-sovereignty at its highest power. It's not woo-woo, it's human.
Yeah, exactly. I know. Yeah. This journey, you know, there's such this idea of what spirituality and woo-woo and psychic is. But yeah, like you say, like being psychic, it is all about knowing what is yours and what is not yours. And it's all about energy.
Yeah. And you've done such an amazing job at raising your vibration and just allowing yourself to be in the capacity to hold and soothe self. So when we talk about vibration, we have to have a high enough of vibration, but that comes with sovereignty. So like knowing self. So what are your kind of go-tos for raising your vibration?
Yeah. So I have morning practices. So that is meditation, journaling, and I like to do a reading on myself, you know, with tarot or oracle cards. I'm gonna be honest, I don't always do that every morning because I do have kids and sometimes they're up at 5 a.m. But I can really see when I haven't been doing it. So overall, I like to do those practices every day to keep my vibration high throughout the week. Say I do, you know, wake up a little bit grumpy, or, you know, sometimes, you know, we pick up other people's energy, especially having kids. You know, they can go, you know, up and down with their emotions. And as a mum, we take that on sometimes. So, putting on like a really great tune and just like dancing silly, like whether it's on my own or whether we do it as a family because everyone's feeling like they're in a bit of a funk, I find like for me, that is what just shifts the vibration and my frequency. It just gets me in a better mood. When we do it as a family, like the kids are laughing, and it's that connection as well, like between the 4 of us. So that's what I really love. I did mention like salt baths before. That's just one way that I cleanse my energy when I have been around a lot of people. So I guess, you know, I have things that I do to like quickly shift myself out of that lower vibration. And then I have things that I do like regularly, whether it's daily or weekly, to just ensure that I maintain that vibration.
Yeah. And I think so many people who aren't so in the woo-woo as us, right? They're like, what does it mean to shift your vibration? It means to come back to a place where you're energetically uncharged. where you have the capacity to read yourself, read others, and be content. Like, a lot of the spiritual world has these words that we don't realize just associate to being human. Like, the point of life is to be content. I don't say happy. Happiness is a frequency, is a place I get to probably 4 to 5 times a day. Contentment is the aim of my long game. I want to be content for the rest of my life, because that means that it's easy to reach joy and happiness, and to come down to sadness and move through that. It's like this middle ground, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to describe things in the humanness of it all, because it seems so untouchable. But at the end of the day, we're just talking about being human beings.
Yeah. I mean, we have to experience those lower vibrational feelings of like fear, anger, grief, to know what is in alignment with our lives. Like, if we weren't to feel those feelings, we wouldn't know what doesn't feel right, what situations didn't feel right, you know, and just making decisions in general. Like, we wouldn't know where we were supposed to go and what we were supposed to do. And then to have those feelings of like joy and happiness, that is like when your souls light up. So like, it is normal to go up and down. Like, that's the point. You know, we are human, and like you said, we are supposed to experience these emotions. But in saying that, you know, when you learn how to heal yourself, you can recognize why you're feeling those lower emotions, and then you'll have the tools to get yourself out of those emotions quicker than what you would do if you weren't healing. You know, like, I look back and, you know, something would happen, but I would stay in that emotion of fear or anger for like days, weeks, and I wouldn't know how to get myself out of it. But now I can transmute it a lot quicker, and then I know, you know, what is in alignment, what I'm supposed to be doing, and what is not for me, whether that's people, places, situations, whatever.
I was laughing because it's so funny as you said that. I kind of reflected on my life, and I was like, I'm pretty sure that's how I lived from the time I was 16 to the time I was like 18, just in a shit vibration. Nothing was good enough. I had everything a girl could want, right? I was so blessed. I had it all. I had the new car, the job. I left uni as ducks. Like, I got it all. Like, I had it all. I had an amazing partner, but it still wasn't good enough. It still wasn't great, because I was constantly agitated. I couldn't understand that the agitation was the shift that I needed to step into. I need to actually feel it instead of push it aside. And I think, and I want to thank you for allowing me to have that and talk about that in this podcast, because we don't know what we have to heal until we've lived through it. And hopefully from telling both of our stories, someone can reflect on themselves and realize that these feelings and emotions just need to be shifted.
Like, I would just say to anyone that's like in this state of like agitation or like fear or anger, just really sit down and ask yourself, why am I feeling this? And it may like be like a situation, but what from that situation like triggered this big amount of agitation or fear? Because there's got to be something in your past. And see, this is the thing, it'll be like a little argument or a little trigger, like someone will say something, but when it comes up, it's not just that anger in the moment, it's the anger from all the times that you've felt anger in the past, because you haven't healed it. It's just like layer on layer on layer on layer. And that's why you have this intense feeling of agitation, fear, grief, because it's just all the stuff that you haven't dealt with, which can seem really overwhelming, but, you know, it comes up in layers. So that, you know, we're constantly healing, because it's like an onion we've talked about before. Like, you unpeel this onion, and so you unpeel the first layer and you're like, okay, I'm feeling agitation because of this, and then you really get to like the root of the problem. I mean, this is exactly like my anxiety, it was all fear. And once I started to unpeel the onion and unpeel the layers back and understand what the anxiety was and what the fear was, the anxiety went. Like, it's amazing. But this is why, like, I just wish that, you know, everyone would just do it. I wish it was talked about more, because I just wish that everyone could just feel this level of like contentment, because that's what you know, like we talked about, like just to feel content and not to feel yucky, because that's how I felt, just like yuck, you know.
Inner peace is happiness. So it's just about learning it and finding it. And I think what you do is so needed, because so many people have never felt contentment. Like, I just had a session with someone and they were just like, I don't think I've ever felt at peace. And he was a 40-year-old man, and I was, to hear that, to me, is shocking. Like, I feel so blessed to be on the journey that I have. It may be rocky and it may have had a lot of dark nights of the soul, but it's got me to where we need to be, and we all get there in due time. So whenever you're listening to this, at whatever time, please heed Kirsten's words, because they are powerful, they are potent, they are giving you the steps you need. Is there anything else you want to add in that you feel like our listeners may need to know before we wrap up this week's episode?
I would just say, if you're in that state of just, feeling yucky, feeling agitated, feeling fear, grief, just sit with self, hand on the heart, and just tell yourself, like, I love you, you are safe, and just feel that love. Like, just imagine you're just surrounded by this white light of love, and just give yourself that love, because that's the first step. Just loving yourself, forgiving yourself, and just by doing that, you're already taking the first step. So just love yourself, give yourself kindness and forgiveness, and just start, because it's like an amazing journey.
And it's so life-changing, and people think that we're too out there, but at the end of the day, we're just coming back to a place of self-love, because self-love will lead you to your gut intuition, and then your intuition just grows and flows, and it all becomes so effortless and easy. And that's the kind of the place that you and I both want everyone to get to, because we've seen the effects that it can have in our own powerful lives.
Thank you.
No worries. I'm so grateful that you could have been here today, and I'm so glad that we got to chat openly and honestly, and thank you for sharing your journey. So if you guys are watching this on YouTube, or if you're listening to the podcast, I will link Kirsten below. Follow her at Kirstan Earl _ on Instagram.
Just at Kirstan Earl.
Okay, no underscore. Cool. But they'll find you. So I hope to see you guys all next week. I hope you have a beautiful, intuitive week. Stay healthy, stay happy, and question yourself lots. And I will see you all next week.